Chapter 3. Let's get into chapter 3. Let's go there. Let's go there. Who wants to take on the challenge of taking us through one statement for every message? Who can do that? Can you do that?
You say what?
Every message thus far? Something for the culture? Identity. Tell me something about identity. Names are significant. Second one, non-negotiables. Tell me something.
You gotta be predetermined before you.
Non-negotiables have to be predetermined before you get to situations, right? You can't start making decisions about what you're going to do based on the situation, right? We have to have a foundation. We've got to have these non-negotiables on the front end so that they can govern our decision-making process regardless of where we find ourselves. That's how you're consistent, right? What else? Two schools of thought. Tell me something. Two schools of thought.
Man's wisdom versus God's wisdom.
Man's wisdom versus God's wisdom. And what do we see coming to the forefront? What do we see rising to the top? Whose wisdom?
Man.
What? I'm going to ask this one more time. Whose wisdom do we see coming to the forefront? Rising to the top? Thank you. Y'all know y'all on camera. Oh, God. Ooh, I got to reteach. I got some work to do, Lord. Oh. Next one was what the world can't give you. Tell me something. What the world can't give you, one thing. Come on.
Hold on. Let me think.
Tell me one thing. I know y'all got one thing in you. Yeah. Y'all thinking hard. Oh, let me help y'all out. What the world can't give you, the king had a dream, remember?
Yes.
So tell me something about that message.
It's a time when the crisis begins, when
You see how important those are? See, look at that. See, you guys got them. Yeah, that's good. That's good. That's okay.
value system. Crisis begins questions.
Crisis begins questions. Okay, that's good. Yeah, I said, tell me something. Yes. They said, Pastor, I have to pull it up first now. I got a lot of notes. See, that's a good thing.
Right, it's a little time.
It takes me time to get through all the notes that I be taking.
He longed for the truth, and he had to begin to see the limitations of the worldly things.
Yep. As soon as crisis hit, right, he started turning to what he placed value in. And it came to the point to where what he had placed value in couldn't deliver on what he needed. Right? And what do we say? As time goes on, the things that you build your life on, that you place a foundation on, or I should say that is foundational for you, as time goes along, life will reveal its inability to be foundational for your life. Right? Anytime you build outside of God on something other than God, it's only a matter of time before that foundation begins to crack and let you down. Right? What was the other one? What are you standing on? Seeing the foundations? What are you standing on? That was our first what? Prophecy chapter in chapter 2. Where Daniel revealed the dream that the king was having. Tell me something about that message. That's more recent. All right. That was the passage, right? Where God spoke to Daniel, allowing him to interpret the king's dream. In that dream, King Nebuchadnezzar was the image of gold. He was the head of gold. Then you had another coming, right? It was the chest and the bronze of silver, then you had the bronze, then you had the iron, then you had the clay, and then this dream, right? This big rock that was made by human hands came, destroyed the image, wiped it away, and that lasted forever. Remember that? Prophecy about the coming of Christ. All right, y'all remember? Y'all flip through y'all notes now, y'all there? So this is what we're picking up. This is what we're going to pick up off of. What are you standing on, right? This was that first prophecy chapter. King had this dream. It was troubling to him. It disturbed him. It was bothering him. He didn't have any peace anymore. God works through Daniel, speaks through Daniel, interprets the dream. Nobody else could do it, showcasing what? The value of God's wisdom over man's wisdom. Remember that? It's just not gonna work. Not gonna work for me. User malfunction. User malfunction. So if we see that gives us, there we go. Now we rock. Boom. Remember that? He was the go-ahead. Then there was another kingdom to come after that. Right? Then you had this Grecian kingdom that would come after that, the bronze, and then the Roman Empire. This is the dream that King Nebuchadnezzar had, was revealed to him. And now we get to chapter 3. It says, King Nebuchadnezzar made an image of gold. Interesting. 90 feet high and 9 feet wide, and set it up on the plain of Dura in the province of Babylon. Then he summoned the satraps, the prefects, the governors, the advisors, the treasurers, the judges, the magistrates, and all the other provincial officials to come to the dedication of the image that he had set up. So the satraps, the prefects, the governors, the advisors, the treasurers, the judges, the magistrates, and all the other provincial officials assembled for the dedication of the image that King Nebuchadnezzar had set up, and they stood before it. Then the herald loudly proclaimed, "This is what you are commanded to do. This is what you have to do, O people, nations and men of every language, everybody. This is what you have to do. As soon as you hear the sound of the horn, the flute, the zither, the lyre, the harp, the pipes, and all kinds of music, you must fall down and worship the image of gold that King Nebuchadnezzar has set up. Whoever does not fall down and worship will immediately be thrown into a blazing furnace." Oh, man. Therefore, as soon as they heard the sound of the horn, the flute, the zither, the lyre, the harp, and all kinds of music, all the peoples, nations, and men of every language, they fell down and they worshiped the image of gold that King Nebuchadnezzar had set up. At this time, some astrologers came forward and denounced the Jews. They said to King Nebuchadnezzar, "O king, live forever. You have issued a decree, you've issued a law, O king, that everyone who hears the sound of the music must fall down and worship the image of gold, and that whoever does not fall down and worship will be thrown into a blazing furnace. But there are some Jews whom you have set over the affairs of the province of Babylon, Shadrach, Meshach, and Abednego, who pay no attention to you, O king. They neither serve your gods nor worship the image of gold that you have set up." So furious with the rage, King Nebuchadnezzar, he summoned them. He summoned Shadrach, Meshach, and Abednego. So these men were brought before the king, and Nebuchadnezzar said to them, "Is it true that you do not serve my gods or worship the image of gold that I have set up? Now when you hear the sound of the music, if you are ready to fall down and worship the image I've made, very good. But if you do not, you will be thrown immediately into a blazing furnace. Then what God will be able to rescue you from my hand?" So Shadrach, Meshach, and Abednego replied to the king, "O Nebuchadnezzar, we do not need to defend ourselves before you in this matter. If we are thrown into the blazing furnace, the God we serve is able to save us from it. But if he does not, We want you to know, O king, that we will not serve your gods or worship the image of gold that you have set up. So regardless of what happens, we're not doing it. We're not bowing. Then Nebuchadnezzar was furious with Shadrach, Meshach, and Abednego, and his attitude toward them changed. He ordered the furnace to be heated up 7 times hotter than usual, and he commanded some of the strongest soldiers in his armies to tie them up and throw them into the fire. So these men, wearing their robes, their turbans, and their other clothes, they got bound up and they got thrown into the blazing furnace. The king's command was so urgent that the furnace was so hot that the flames of the fire killed the other soldiers of the 3 men who threw them into the blazing furnace. Then King Nebuchadnezzar leaped to his feet in amazement and asked his advisors, weren't there just 3 who were tied up and thrown into the fire? They replied, certainly, O king. He said, look, I see 4 men walking around in the fire, unbound and unharmed, and the 4th looks like the son of the gods. Nebuchadnezzar then approached the opening of the fire and shouted, Shadrach, Meshach, and Abednego, servants of the Most High God, come out, come here. So they came out of the fire, and the satraps, the prefects, the governors, the royal advisors crowded around them. They saw that the fire had not harmed their bodies, nor was a hair on their heads singed. Their robes were not scorched, and there was no smell of fire at all. Then Nebuchadnezzar said, praise be to God, or praise be to the God of Shadrach, Meshach, and Abednego, who has sent his angel and rescued his servants. They trusted in him and defied the king's commands and were willing to give up their lives rather than to serve or worship any other god except their own God. Therefore, I decree that the people of any nation or language who say anything against the God of Shadrach, Meshach, and Abednego be cut into pieces and their houses be turned into piles of rubble, for no other God can save in this way. Then the king promoted them in the province of Babylon. Heavenly Father, God, we thank you for today. God, we just pray as it's time to hear a word from you, Lord God, that you decrease me to the smallest capacity so that you may increase. God, just allow me to be a free-flowing vessel that's full of your word, that pierces the flesh, that touches the heart, Lord God, that meets each and every one of us exactly where we are. God, you are the author of life, and so nothing is random, Heavenly Father. We know that you are a God of purpose, and every single one of us, Lord God, who are here today are here because you have ordained it, because you have purpose for us to be here, Lord God. So I pray that we receive what it is that you have for us, Lord God, that you raise awareness, that you educate, and that you inspire us, Lord God, to a deeper and loving relationship with you. I pray, Lord God, that as I am decreased, that you are increased in me, and that you not only minister through me, but to me as well. In Jesus' name we pray. Amen. So the king has this dream in chapter 2, right? Where he's troubled by this dream. Daniel reveals this dream, and in that dream, he is that head of gold, right? He's got this massive kingdom. He's got all of this power. Everybody in the world are subjects to him. He's got a vast kingdom. He's got resources, authority. Everything happens at his call, at his command. But I tell you, one thing about prideful and powerful people is they have a hard time accepting their mortality. The king was troubled by this dream because you saw an image, dazzling, beautiful, strong, and what it appeared to be. But then, after time, being carried away. Reducing or being reduced to absolutely nothing, right? To rubble, to dust, like chaff, and then withered away. So the king, interestingly, in this next chapter, builds himself not just a head of gold, but an entire image of gold. As almost to say is, hey, I ain't just the head of this whole structure. I'm everything. I'm not going anywhere, so therefore, I deserve to be worshipped. It's interesting. after he has this dream, I mean, you see him having this dream, Daniel interpreted, speaking to who he represents in that image, but then how these other kingdoms will come after him, and then the kingdom of God will come and be established. And it's almost as if he's saying, hey, you know what? I ain't going nowhere. Not only am I just the head, but I'm the whole image. I'm the entire structure, and I deserve to be worshipped. Interesting. The image represented King Nebuchadnezzar's power and pride. This statue was breathtaking, right? In appearance, it was dazzling, towering, and hovering over everything else. You know, it's amazing how big we see ourselves, isn't it? We walk around with our nose up, and we on the same plane and the same height as everybody else. But it's amazing how big we see ourselves. But pride will do this to you, right? In relationship to everything else, this is how I view myself, and this is everybody else. It's this depiction, it's this illustration of pride, right? Pride, it causes us to have a disproportionate view of ourselves in relationship to other people. That's what it does. A lot of big me and little yous. It's all about me. And yeah, that's right, my subjects, these people. And exalting humans over God has been something that's been taking place since the very beginning, right? You take God out of the center of his creation. You take God out of the center of everything, and we place ourselves there. And then you have chaos. But that's how we live. We are the center of our own lives. It's man above God. We've exalted man. We've exalted man ideas. We've exalted man's wisdom over God. And so this is an illustration of what's taking place spiritually. And what does Proverbs 16:18 say? Right? That pride comes before the fall. Pride goes before destruction, and a haughty spirit before the fall, which means a prideful spirit. Pride goes before the fall. And in the king's dream, there was a fall. You had this massive image, dazzling in structure, with everybody seemed to be beautiful, impenetrable, strong. But as time went on, it failed. And it existed no more. So whether he was fearful of leading these massive people and wondering, hey, well, you know, I'm leading a multitude of people, I'm leading this world, there could be a rebellion. Or whether it's just his pride saying that he deserved to be worshipped, or whether it's a combination of both, the king, as a result, issues a religious law. He issues a religious decree. This is the perfect time to bring this back up. So what do you have taking place? You have a society, you have a culture, you have this Babylonian kingdom, right? That are made up of different systems. The king is the dictator. And so from a government perspective, a political perspective, what does he do? He issues a decree. Right? So he issues a law. He brings everybody together and he says, you know what? We're going to issue a law. The law is that everybody must bow and worship me. The law is that you must view me as a God. I want you to value me higher than you value anything else. And I'm going to build this cultural idol to shape your behavior, because at the sound of the music, it's going to be in alignment to what I value and what I want everybody else to value. And as a result, I want everybody to have the same behavior. I want everybody to bow and worship me. And what does that do? Does that equal a behavior, does that equal a lifestyle, does that equal a position in life that honors God or dishonors God? Dishonors God. It's easy to walk through this. That's why I provide this diagram so that we can understand how things factor into what we do, how we do things, why we do things, maybe some cultural blind spots because we're immersed in the culture all day, every day. But this gives us a clear illustration of what it looks like. So for today's message, as we have something for the culture, we're continuing this series today, is what gets your worship? What gets your worship? Everybody worships something. And as soon as you say, no, I don't, I mean, you worship yourself, your own ideas, and your independence. So the king, what did he do? He attempted, this is what he did. He attempted to unify the kingdom through two things. He put a law in place, but then he had consequences that were deadly. So what does that invoke? Fear. I'm going to unify this kingdom through fear. And then what else did he do? He said, I'm calling everybody at the sound of the music to come together and bow and worship something, to commit to something. Right? So I'm using fear and religion to unify people. It's exactly what takes place. Every authoritative figure was present. Right? Everybody within the system of government and politics. He says, come, and this is not just a political meeting, because now you've got music, now you've got bowing, worship, coupled with music. It's like a religious service. That's what we do, right? We offer up praise and worship to God. We come and we do that in a unified fashion, coupled with praise and worship music. And that is a worship service. It's interesting. So what gets our worship? What's the soundtrack to our worship? The enemy says, look, I'll use this powerful tool of music to help aid in people worshiping something other than God. I'll make worshiping something other than God a little bit easier by accompanying music with it. Isn't that interesting? The Babylonians must have understood the power of music to intentionally tie it to worshiping something other than God. Why be so adamant? Why be so intentional about having music come and accompany people who wouldn't normally do that under any other circumstances? And what do we know about music? So when you start talking about music, that's where, oh man, you want to split hairs, or you want to split a conversation, or you want to split a room. Start talking about music. We all got a soft spot for that. But watch this. When you think about music, it's interesting. It's wise on their part to incorporate music. Why? Because if you consider the emotional influence, the mental influence that music has on people, I mean, you think about it throughout history, everything, like, as soon as you want to create a galvanizing movement of nationalism, what accompanies that? Music. As soon as you want to call people to action, right, to move toward, you want to inspire people towards something, you accompany that with music, right? You want to get people to act and inspire them to act and move and do something, music is accompanied with it. Why? Because it has an emotional and a mental influence. So I'm getting you, I want you to do something that you probably don't want to do. And in order to make that a little bit easier, in order to make that a little bit more palatable, then we'll give you something that you consider to be pleasurable. We'll give you something that can influence your emotions in doing something and worshiping something that you shouldn't be doing, in a sense. Right? So you've got all of these factors playing. You've got all of these factors in place. You've got a law. You've got pressuring people, right, to do something. And you've got that coming from a high authority. So you've got the law that's in place. You've got this decree that's in place. And that's coming from the people who are in authority, or who are in authority, I should say. Right? To invoke consequences on you. You've got this fiery furnace that's representing the consequences of not going along with what everybody wants you to do. You've got this golden image which represents cultural idols that pull us away from God. You've got, what else? You've got the well-being, because your life is on the line if you don't go along with everybody else. Because if you don't do it, then you die. So your well-being is on the line. Your life is on the line. Right? Your position, your career, because what are they? They high-ranking officials in government. So their career is on the line. Their job security is on the line. Them being able to pay bills is on the line. Them being able to make a living is on the line. All of that stuff is on the line. Then you've got the expectations of others. There's a lot of factors. Right? And then it's socially acceptable. Everybody's doing it. So what do you do? What do you do? Do you go along? Look at all that. Look at all the factors you got. It's a law. If I don't do it, I die. And not just die, I die painfully. My job, this is what I do. This is what we do. What am I supposed to do? This is what my company says. I have to carry out my roles and responsibilities. Look at all that. My well-being. I mean, hey, man, I want to be here for a while. I'm still young. I don't want to risk my life for doing that. And then guess what? It's socially acceptable. Ain't nobody else got a problem with it, so why should I? Which goes back to the question that I've been asking, because it ties into this. How many people does it take to do the wrong thing before you're comfortable doing the wrong thing? How many? One? Woo, man. You got a whole nation of people doing the wrong thing. Does it become a little bit easier to do the wrong thing? There should never be an answer. We should never have a number for that. If it's 1, 1,000, 1 million, or 100 million, wrong is wrong. But unfortunately, that's a number for some people. Some people have a number. It shouldn't be a number. But a lot of times, that's what happens. Drew, come here, man. Sit right here. So you've got all these factors, man, weighing on you, right? You've got fear. You've got consequences. You've got a reputation that's on the line. You've got the comfort in life. You've got the unknown telling you to just hold your head down, keep moving along, keep doing what you're doing. What do you do? What do you do? When society wants you to bow, when society wants you to do something that's contrary to what God has called you to do, what do? Do you stay seated? Do you stay in a position that everybody else is in? Or do you stand? Try to stand, man. It's hard to stand. But stand. Go ahead. Use your strength. You can stand. Resist me. You stand anyway. Although it's hard, although you got forces acting upon you, although you carry in fear, that's all right. That's where courage steps in. It's in the place of fear. Let me do what I know is right in the place of fear. Right? God told Joshua over and over and over again to be strong and courageous. Yes, I know that you're fearful. Yes, I know that this is uncharted territory. Yes, I know that you've got consequences that people in authority are holding over you. And guess what? I know that your life is on the line. But guess what? Be strong and courageous anyway, because I'm worth all of that. You see what I'm saying? So we stand anyway. Gotta stand. We're gonna stand. We've got to stand, because when you know what you're standing for, then you can't bow to anything. And those 3 Hebrew boys, they knew what they were standing for. And they said, you know what? I can't bow to that. Wait. This look like worshiping him. I can't bow to that. Why would I bow to image? How come I just can't walk past it and say, oh, nice job? Yeah. Nice. Where y'all found all that gold? Jeez. Good craftsmanship. Why are you building? You know what culture loves to do? Sometimes intentionally, a lot of times unintentionally, or a lot of times both, actually. Unintentionally and intentionally. But culture loves to drive a wedge between our convictions and our worship. A wedge in between our convictions and our worship. And we can't allow, right, the pressures of the culture to cause us to abandon God's truth. And they had a lot of pressure. They had a lot of pressure. That was the makeup of society. But if we don't see things for what they really are, if we don't understand our place and our context as we live and move and just flow in and out of society, then we'll get lost. And we won't even know we lost. If we're not on guard, we'll be deceived into worshiping cultural idols over our one true living God. If you're not careful, be deceived into worshiping cultural idols. What is worship? What is it? You ever try to define what worship is? Do you have a definition for you about what worship is? Responding to God in obedience with our entire being. With our entire being. Responding to him in obedience with everything that he's given us, our gifts, our talents, our treasures, our entire lives. It's responding to him in obedience. And it's respecting who God is and how he sees things. If you don't respect how God sees things, then you can't worship him. Because if his view doesn't govern your thoughts and your perspectives, and you say, well, yeah, I know God sees it like this. But you're about to say but after that. If you start with that, yeah, I know God sees it like this. I know that's what God says. And all you're doing is driving right down the road to make a justification to do something otherwise. That's all that doesn't set you. As soon as somebody starts, yeah, I know God says this, it's a but coming after that. Yeah, I know this is what God says. I know he says this for in his word and for his people, or for those who are truly committed to him. I'm about to say but. So it's respecting how he sees things and who he is. Because if God is not primary, if he's not the authoritative figure, if he's not everything to you, then that means at some point in time, something else will be. Whether it's for a moment, something else takes its place, then it's hard to worship him when something else is number one. Because for that moment, you don't want to see things the way he sees it. Make sense? Watch this. What else do you think we have to be on guard against? I just said it. Justifications. Justification, boy, I tell you, is like lint in the pocket. Easy to find. Easy to find. It's like dust is always there. You can always find a justification. You can justify anything. Anything. That ain't hard. It's not a skill. We always justify stuff. Look at their situation. Oh, I don't know if I want to talk about world yet. Ooh. Watch this. Watch this situation. The Babylonians. Do I have that? Look at this. It's a justification. Well, you know, the Babylonians don't know the laws of our God. And we don't want to offend the culture. We don't want to offend everybody else. So, and we don't want to ruin our witness either. So if we can bow now, then it allows us to speak to them later. Sounds nice. Could have did that. That could have been a justification. Shoot, there's only 3 of them that ain't bowing. It's somebody's justification. I don't want to offend anybody. Everybody else doing it. And this is what they value. And I know I don't really value it, but let me go ahead. Let me go ahead. That's a justification. Oh, you got this one. No one to see me. Shoot, I got some. See, I ain't that tall. I can get down first and go when they go. Wait a minute, who? All right. When you think we ain't gonna be seen, that's called integrity. It don't matter who can see you or who doesn't see you. But if you're a different person, when eyes ain't on you, then that's no integrity. What else you got? God will forgive me. Well, you know, they got that furnace over there, and that fire is ablazing. And this king ain't playing, because he just killed his wise men when they couldn't tell him his dream. So I know that ain't just for show, right? He ain't forgiven, but God is forgiven. God will forgive me. God will understand. That's a justification. And it sounds good. You can make it sound good. Invoke a lot of emotion in that. Another justification for not doing what you should be doing. That's a good one. God is more forgiving than these Babylonians. And he understands that everything is on the line right now. I'm so young, I've got so much life to live. Surely he didn't want me to die right now. Because if I stand, I'll die. God, you don't want me to die for you, do you? Not right now. Not like this. But Jesus died for you. He don't want me to die over this. Ain't that serious. Is right. It's what we do all the time. It's how you compromise. of, I love God, I live for God. Then you have this. I'll kneel inwardly, but in my heart I'm still standing. Talking to your neighbor, man. Really, I don't even know what I'm doing this. I believe in this image. Some gold. Ain't no gold. We built it. Oh, wait out. Is that far over there? These are justifications. We do this time and time and time again in some shape, form, or fashion. Because we live in a culture that will verbally shame you and put you in a fire and ostracize you and pull up stuff from whatever, right? We just go along to get along. We don't want the heat. So what do? We appease the crowd. We appease the culture. And all the while saying, well, I don't really believe that, but let me go and say what they want me to say. We see it happen all the time in the news. We see it happen all the time in social media. We see it happen all the time in the entertainment industry. Somebody stand on something. What? Throw him in the fire verbally, or her in the fire verbally. And then what do? They make an initial stance, but then that flame get too hot, and what do? They come off of it. We see it all the time. If you're not willing to die for something, then you're not living for anything. Jesus said, I'll prove that I'm living for you because I'll die for you. You want to know how much I love you? You want to know how much I'm committed to you? You want to know how much you mean to me? I'll die for you. I'll let the whole world hate me. I'll take all of that and put it on my shoulders, and I'll still go to the cross for you willingly. Just imagine that pain. Being one with God for eternity that we can't even comprehend, and then to be separated from God. God, why have thou forsaken me? I've never ever experienced this type of pain, this type of darkness, this type of suffering. I've been with you for eternity, but I'm taking upon the burdens of my people so that I can restore and redeem what was lost and deliver them. And I made all of the adjustments, walked among them, got spat on, got criticized, got talked about, got misunderstood, and I did all of that for you. I died for you. And I want to die for God. And are we really living for Him? There are people outside of this country that still go through this, where it is a law that you cannot worship God. And you know what they're not doing? We're saying, hey, well, you know what? Since it's a law, and since I'm gonna die for doing that, then I'm not. That's not happening. Got a friend right now that I can't write back because of his testimony and because of what he's doing for Christ. That knows all about this. So we've got to make sure that we're guarding against what we're bowing to. Yeah, it's not a golden image. But is it that moment? Is it to those friends? Is it to that girl? Is it to that guy? Is it to that hint? Is it to that drink? What are we bowing to? What are we giving in to? What's making it difficult for us to stand? Because we don't want to face the consequences of what comes along with standing. Let me bring this back up. I had this up here. I touched on it briefly. But worldview. What's a worldview? Damon, what's a worldview? It's those glasses, right? You look out of those lenses to see the world. That's what a worldview is. It's the lens by which you look out of. It's how you go about interpreting reality. So your worldview, that lens that you look out of, right? It informs your thoughts or your views about God, about yourself, and the world you live in. It's the lens by which we look through life. How we interpret reality. It's our worldview. How we see money, sex, identity, justice, good, evil. It's your worldview. How do you see those things? How do you interpret those things? What's your definition of those things? It's your worldview, right? And everybody sees differently. Everybody sees differently. Which means people can all partake in the same situation and come out with a different conclusion. Hey man, how was that? How was that? How was that? How many people you ask? 3. How many different answers you get? 3. They all saw the same thing differently. They all interpreted the same thing differently. Worldviews are important. What we believe about those particular things in life, right, has a direct impact on the choices we make. How we interpret reality has a direct impact on the decisions that we make. If my identity, right, is tied to other people's opinions of me, then that means I'll do things, I'll make decisions so that I can be acceptable to people. And as soon as people don't accept me, it's got a direct relationship to my self-worth. Make sense? Just an example. Now watch this. If everybody has a worldview, and we all have influence, that means you're constantly living in a world where other people's worldviews are shaping other people's worldviews. Why do we have all these movements? Why do things change? Why is society now changing? Why are we open to this? Why does this go? Because they imposed their worldview on people, and then it changed. Anytime you listen or you watch, whether it's a podcast, whether it's a movie, whether it's music, whether it's a YouTube channel, whatever, you're being exposed to somebody else's worldview. Anytime somebody creates something, then you're taking in or you're being exposed to their worldview. Worldviews guide our decisions. Watch this. There was a study done. I think I mentioned this earlier, but this is why I wanted to bring it up. There was a Barna study done, and it interviewed Americans. I'll tell you more. And 62% of people said they were deeply spiritual, right? Okay. 62%. Deeply spiritual. Then the question was asked, how much does the Bible play into or factor into your decision making? And those 62 people there, right? What you think? Oh, you didn't add up, it was right. 5? A third of the people, so 31%, 32%, said that they make decisions based upon satisfaction and comfort in the moment. So situational ethics, if you will. Well, it all depends on the moment. Which goes back to the non-negotiables. Right? It's not already predetermined what you will and won't do, but it's like, well, let me get into the situation first. Let me see what the right thing to do is. What's more beneficial? What's more easy? What's more comfortable? So no non-negotiables. Less than 20% of the 62% said that God governs their decision making. You know what that means? And once you get to the numbers, now you can see why things are the way they are. What it means is that most Christians don't have a biblical worldview. Wow. It's not what you profess that dictates your decisions. It's your worldview that dictates your decisions. So you can, whew. So why do we have this dichotomy where we profess them but we don't live them? Because you've got so many Christians that profess them, but they don't see like God sees. They don't have a biblical worldview. God doesn't govern their lives. So now you make decisions that are contrary to God, but all the while with your mouth, you saying that you His. And that's a problem. That's a problem. I'm pretty sure that although those 3 boys were standing, and they were standing strong, had to be like, what in the world are they bowing? We serve the same God, the one true living God. I know what it says in the scriptures. Why are they bowing? What kind of worldview do they have that's guiding their decision making? Why make that choice? But we're supposed to be God's covenant people. I can just imagine. It's interesting. The ultimate question is this. It's not whether or not you have faith. Everybody's got faith in something, right? The question is, what is the object of your faith? That's the question. We're created to worship. We're created to put our faith in something. And the question is, what's the object of our worship? What are we worshiping? What gets our worship? What are we putting our faith in? Because there are people who are blindly following the crowd. And you know what they're in need of? An example of what it looks like to stand in a culture of compromise. We've got to understand how valuable of a position we occupy in this world. If we don't understand our purpose to be that light in a world that's spiritually dark, to be the salt of the earth, to preserve things, to keep things afloat, then we'll come up off our post. I'm going to end with this. Look at what Isaiah says. Watch this. And I love this because it was written before this took place. These boys know about this. It says, do not fear, for I have redeemed you. I have delivered you. I have saved you. I have set you free. Right? He says, I have summoned you by name. I call you by name. You are mine. When you pass through the waters, I will be with you. And when you pass through the rivers, they will not sweep over you. When you walk through the fire, you will not be burned. The flames will not set you ablaze, for I am the Lord your God, the Holy One of Israel, I am your Savior. That's powerful. It speaks directly to their situation. And it still speaks to us today. God says, you know what? I know there are going to be some situations and some contexts in life that are going to bring fear. But he says, don't worry about those particular things because I've saved you. I'll deliver you. I've redeemed you. Right? I know that situations are going to come. He says, but I've called you by name. In a world where people are trying to change your identity, what do? They change their names. They call them different names. He says, listen, everybody else may call you a different name. Everybody else may see you as something else or want you to be something else. But I know who you are and I know whose you are and you're mine. That's comforting to know in a society where it's easy to lose yourself. Right? Where everybody's pressuring you to be something else. God says, guess what? I know your name. You are mine. And when you pass through the waters, I'll be with you. And when you go through the fire, guess what? I'll be there with you as well. He says, so although you find yourself now in a situation where there's a flaming fire that's right there as a consequence, right, to not bow into this false image, just rely on what I said. I'll be with you in the fire. And so that's a twofold thing. That's confidence in God's word, but it's also a submission to God. To say, you know what? This is exactly what he told the king. He said, you know what? My God can save us, right? But you know what? Even if he doesn't, I'm still not going to worship you. That's a twofold thing. You've got to have confidence that God can do it, that he has the power to do it, that he loves us enough to do it, but we've also got to submit to his will to say, you know what? Even if it's not in his will for him to come and take me out of this fire, guess what? It don't end until it ends well. What if Paul said to live is Christ and to die is gain? I don't lose. Either God's going to show up in a miraculous way and deliver me right now, or I will be delivered for eternity. It don't end until it ends well. And I love the fact that this was written before the boys faced this circumstance because they can rely on this. God has already said, hey, I'll be with you through those tests and through those trials. When the enemy is trying to persecute you and throw you to the flames, guess what? I have the power and the ability, right, to relieve you from that, to deliver you from that. And he says, you know what? God's going to either deliver us or he's not. But either way, we still win. And either way, we ain't bowing. And that's the stance that we've got to take. Regardless of what the consequences are, regardless of what those who are in authority are saying, if it doesn't line up with what God requires of us, then guess what? We get to say we ain't doing that. And leave the consequences up to God. Because nothing else should be getting our worship.